Fellas, welcome back to the channel. As you guessed by the title of this video, today I'm going over the Palmetto State Armory Sabre. I recently ran a poll on my channel with 4 different options to choose from on the kind of content you all want me to create. I'll put a picture of that poll on screen for you so you can see the options that were listed in that poll. The PSA Sabre won by an overwhelming 54%, and I promised to honor the result of that poll no matter what the outcome was. I also promised to do a 2,000 round review on whatever rifle or pistol was chosen in that poll. So that's what I did. I put 2,000 rounds for the PSA Sabre. I broke it up into 4 different training days in 500 round increments. I'm going to give you a breakdown of each training day, and then I'll give you a full overview of the rifle and my opinions on it. Before we get started, I think it's only appropriate I give you all the disclaimers I need to before I get into the overview of this rifle. The only disclaimer I have for this video is that there is none. PSA did not send this rifle out to me. I paid for all the ammunition and optic in this video. So besides that, there's not much more to say besides. Let's get into it. For my first range day, the first thing I did was I zeroed my optic. That took me a total of about 10 rounds. After that, I immediately did an accuracy test with the PSA Sabre. I averaged about 1.3 to 1.5 MOA. I'll put some footage on screen for you to take a look at. The only real issue I had was with 77 grain AAC ammo. That grouping was anywhere from 4 to 5 inches, which was pretty absurd. So whenever I saw that, I decided to do an accuracy test every 500 rounds with the PSA Sabre. From the factory, the gas block on this rifle is wide open. That sends a ton of unnecessary gas back into the firearm. That created a really harsh recoil impulse. I have about 50 rounds through the Sabre. This thing does have an adjustable gas block. I'm pretty sure it was opened all the way from the factory. I'm going to adjust it because it's pretty punchy. Let's make some adjustments and see if that helps at all. I made sure the ejection pattern was at the nice 4 o'clock position like a rifle is supposed to eject. Once I found that nice 4 o'clock ejection, I opened the gas block up one more slot just to ensure a little bit more reliability. After I did that, I had 2 failures to feed, so I decided to open the gas block up one more slot. After I did that, rounds about 150 through 500, I had no more malfunctions or hiccups at all, so that's good. Those failures to feed were induced by me tuning the gas block, which is okay. That's my fault. After that, I also made the decision not to lube the bolt until I started having consistent malfunctions. For round 0 through 500, the bolt didn't get any sort of maintenance. There was no lube put on it. It just was shot as is from the factory. Whenever it comes to rounds 500 through 1,000, I had no major malfunctions whenever it comes to the PSA Sabre. I did have one hiccup where I was running a drill. The bolt got stuck about halfway home. Whenever I shouldered the rifle and I turned it, I went to go inspect it. The bolt sent itself all the way back home, clearing the malfunction on its own. Outside of that, that was the only real issue I had with rounds 500 through 1,000. That hiccup was around round 700. In the footage you're watching on screen, as you can see in the first 500 rounds, I didn't paint the rifle. That was because if I had any sort of major malfunctions, we could rule out the fact that there was paint on the rifle. After my first range day, I went ahead and painted it, and as you can see, I think it turned out pretty good. But the paint hasn't affected the rifle in any way. All it did was add to the aesthetics of it, so that's good. I still haven't added lube to the bolt at this point. It's 1,000 round strongs with no major malfunctions. Whenever it comes to my accuracy test, whenever I shot the 77 grain AAC ammo, it went from about a 4.5 inch group to about a 2.3 inch grouping. That's still not the best group in the world, but it's still a lot better than 4 or 5 inches. So the accuracy after the break-in period on the PSA Sabre did improve, at least with the 77 grain AAC ammo. Everything else remained consistent. For rounds 1,000 through 1,500, before I went to the range on Friday night, I texted my buddy Andrew and I said, if I had to guess, this is going to be the range day where the PSA Sabre starts to malfunction. And that's exactly what happened. Before I elaborate, keep in mind that this bolt still hasn't had any lube on it. It's just as is from the factory. So from rounds 1,000 to about 1,300, everything was fine. The gun was functioning perfectly, no malfunctions. At around round 1,350 is when I had my first failure to feed. After that, I probably got 5 or 6 in a row, so I was getting them pretty consistently. Malfunction. Stupid timer. My initial diagnosis was the fact that the bolt was getting dry and it needed some lubrication, so that's exactly what I did. So I've had like 6 failures to feed in a row. Again, this gun is about 1,200 or 1,300 rounds with no lubrication straight from the factory. So I'm going to put some lube on it, then we're going to run some more drills and see what happens. This is just like gun oil I got from the CZ Bren 2 cleaning kit. I usually just keep it in my range bag. So we're going to oil the bolt, see if that helps. If not, we'll do a full cleaning on it. Take a look at this footage after I put lubrication on the bolt. So I'm just going to drop 20 and see if it'll cycle all 20. See what happens. Yeah, it definitely just looks like the fact that the bolt was dry. After I put lube on the bolt, we had no major malfunctions or hiccups. Accuracy on the PSA Sabre from rounds 1000 through 1500 also remained consistent, so that's good. For rounds 1500 through 2000, I didn't put any more lubrication on the bolt. I left it as is from round 1350. We had no major malfunctions or hiccups at all. The PSA Sabre from rounds 1500 through 2000 ran flawlessly. The accuracy remained consistent from rounds 1500 through 2000 and arguably improved. Keep in mind that the bolt, the chamber, and the barrel had no cleaning done to them whatsoever. The only maintenance I did on this rifle was put lubrication on it at around round 1350. For 2000 rounds, we had no major malfunctions with the PSA Sabre. I was able to shoot a sub MOA group with 77 grain AAC ammo. Outside of that, all the other ammunition types I tested remain consistent at about 1.2 to 1.7 MOA, so that's pretty good. Before I started any training, I witness marked the handguard screws. After I painted it, I re-witness marked them. So after 2000 rounds, the handguard screws didn't start to back out at all. That's pretty good. The reason I decided on 2000 rounds is because of the consumer this rifle is marketed to. It's marketed as a high quality, budget-friendly option whenever it comes from PSA. PSA is known for their budget options. They wanted to offer something that's a little bit higher quality, but still budget-friendly. So that's what this rifle is a higher quality, budget-friendly rifle that comes with all of the necessary upgrades and is supposed to be as reliable as possible for the average consumer right out of the box. Now that I've given you the 2000 round overview whenever it comes to the training with the PSA Sabre, let's dive into the rifle. Oh, dang it, 2 misses. Holy crap, that was tough. On the rifle, we'll start with the muzzle device and the barrel and we'll work our way down. You've already seen the accuracy you can expect, at least with this sample size of 1, whenever it comes to the PSA Sabre. You can average anywhere from 1.5 to 2 MOA. On the better side, anywhere from 0.9 to 1.3 MOA, which for the cost of this rifle, I think that's pretty acceptable. The barrel itself is a 223 Wild 1-in-8 twist barrel. That's 14.5 inches with the Surefire Warcomp pin and welded on it. The barrel itself is 4150 with a nitride finish. It has an M4 barrel extension and mid-length gas system. The Surefire Warcomp that comes pin and weld from PSA is timed for a right-handed shooter. I also don't think the barrel that comes on this PSA Sabre is cold hammer forged. I looked everywhere through their website and I can't find any information confirming it is, so I'm just going to assume it's not. While I'm talking about the barrel, I'll also talk about the upper before I forget. It's made out of 7075 T6 aluminum with hard coat anodizing on it, and then it's also T-mark engraved for those of you that care. As I mentioned in my training video, on the PSA Sabre, the gas block is user adjustable. From the factory, at least on this model, this thing was wide open, which is no big deal. Just tune it the way you want it to shoot and you'll be good to go. PSA also gives you an Allen key that's easily able to fit inside of this handguard so you can adjust the gas block on the fly. That is appreciated. Thank you, PSA. Like I said, this gas block being wide open from the factory is no big deal. What is a big deal is that my gas block appeared to have rust on it straight from the factory. I'll post a picture of what my gas block looked like, and I'll also post a picture of another Sabre gas block I found on Reddit. That way you guys can see what it's supposed to look like. If you don't think it's rust, let me know what you think it is in the comments. I consulted 4 to 5 different people, and they all confirmed to me that they believed it is surface rust. I contemplated on if I wanted to submit an RMA form or not. I decided not to. I figured this gas block is going to get covered in carcinogens anyway, so it didn't bother me that much. I figured if I'm going to do a review on this rifle, I might as well do it on the way it comes, straight from PSA. As you saw, the apparent rust on the front of my gas block didn't affect reliability in any way, so that's good. If you do think your gas block has rust on it, I definitely recommend you get it checked out or just replacing it to be safe. I wasn't worried if PSA was going to cover this gas block or not. I know their customer service is pretty good. I've had good experiences with their customer service team in the past. I also believe if you're going to have a lifetime warranty on products, that is phenomenal. I also believe that people shouldn't have to use their lifetime warranty on the premium line of rifles you're producing. So would PSA cover this in an RMA form and warranty it out? Absolutely. Should I have to use it whenever it comes to something that's supposed to be your premium line straight from the factory? Absolutely not, but I digress. Let's move on to the handguard. Whenever it comes to the handguard on the PSA Sabre, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think the 13-inch length with the 14.5 pin and weld barrel is perfect. The biggest complaint I have with the handguard for the PSA Sabre is the fact that these QD points for your sling aren't anti-rotational. What that translates to is whenever you have a sling inside of them, if you are running drills or just walking, whatever it may be, your sling can easily get twisted like this, and it drives me freaking crazy. Some people I know actually prefer not to have anti-rotational QD points for their sling. I'm a person that does. This is mostly just nitpicking this handguard. I love how slim this rail is. I can easily get a nice C-clamp on the rail itself, allowing me to control recoil. But with a slim rail like this comes a little bit of a disadvantage. This thing can heat up rather quickly. Around mag 4 is whenever this thing really starts to heat up. I usually just threw on a mechanic's glove and I was good to go. It wouldn't bother me anymore after I had a glove on. But overall, I'm a big fan of this rail. It's held up nicely, and as I mentioned in my 2,000 round training overview, I witness marked the handguard screws and they didn't start to back out after 2,000 rounds. That's good. While we're right here, I'll talk about the optic setup I have on here. This is a primary arms 1:8 SLX first focal plane LPVO, and then I have it in a Unity fast LPVO mount. I'm pretty sure this is like 2.05 inches is the height. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Moving on to the lower definitely has some desirable upgrades inside of it. Again, that's the whole point of the PSA Sabre, is a budget-friendly options with desirable upgrades straight from the factory. You get a radian talon safety that can be switched to 45 degrees or 90 degrees. I personally like a 90-degree throw, and I run this safety in a couple of my other rifles. I'm a big fan of the safety selector. The charging handle is a Radian Raptor LT charging handle. It's ambi, and I'm also a fan of this charging handle. I use it in a couple of my other rifles as well. This is the LT version. LT stands for light. What that translates to is it's the fact that the wings where you grab onto the charging handle are polymer instead of aluminum. In my opinion, I think they use the LT more for cost savings than they did weight savings, but that's just my personal take on it. Overall, I think the Radian Raptor LT is a good choice for a charging handle. The trigger you get is an RBT Hyperfire trigger with JP reduced power springs. It has a nice, clean, crisp break on it with a solid reset. Let me show you what this trigger looks like. Let's make sure the gun's safe first. Yeah, we're good. Take it off safe. So again, it's a single stage trigger. There is no take up at all. So there is no wall. You just pull through it. Solid reset. And then again, there is no wall. You just pull straight through it. Solid reset. Overall, I think this trigger has performed well. The biggest concern I had with this trigger was the reduced power springs. I was concerned around the 2,000 round mark is whenever I would start to get light primer strikes. That didn't happen whatsoever. This trigger is still good to go. The next upgrade you get in the lower are the Battle Arms Development's takedown and pivot pins. Whenever I first inspected these pins, they are so easy to push out. It's not even funny. Let me lift this up a little bit. All I have to do is push it out just a little bit and get it started. Then I can just pull it out, and the rifle comes apart like that. Whenever I inspected that for the first time, I was worried about the 1 in a million chance that something hits this takedown pin just perfectly, and whenever I'm doing something, it breaks my rifle apart, leading to something catastrophic happening. That's just how my brain functions, is me thinking of that 1 in a billion scenario where something like that could happen. Moving back to the buffer tube, you get a Springco white spring, and then the castle nut on here was staked in 2 different places, which was effective because the castle nut hasn't started to back out at all. So that's good. Moving on to the bolt. As I mentioned, this bolt was 2,000 rounds strong with no major malfunctions, no cleaning at all. All I did was put lube on it around round 1350. Outside of that, this bolt you get has performed phenomenally. After 2,000 rounds, the ejection pattern has remained consistent. Whenever the mags were low, it would spit a spent casing around the 3 o'clock to maybe 2:30. But that's okay. 99% of the time, the spent casings that were coming out of this firearm were getting ejected at the 4 o'clock position. That was at round 1 and round 2,000. That's pretty good in my opinion. The bolt itself is made by Microbest. From my understanding, it's custom made for PSA. It's their Fathers of Freedom bolt. Bolt itself has Springco extractor springs. Whenever I pull it out of the firearm for the first time to clean it, I'll video it. That way you guys can see how dirty it was. Whenever I clean it, I'll put a picture or video on the screen for you. That way you guys can see the aftermath of what this bolt looks like after 2,000 rounds of no cleaning or no lube. The bolt itself is Carpenter 158 and it has a magnesium phosphate finish. After 2,000 rounds, I would say this bolt has performed phenomenally. That's just my personal opinion though. With the Sabre, you get Magpul's SL Furniture. I'm honestly a fan of this buttstock. I never have tried it and I never would have tried it if it didn't come on this PSA Sabre. The only real issue I have is that this QD point in the sling isn't anti-rotational either. And then for the pistol grip, I think it's adequate. I just prefer something thicker like a Magpul K2 Plus grip. But like I said, this pistol grip is adequate and it worked just fine. No real complaints there. It was a good furniture choice on PSA whenever it comes to the Magpul SL stuff. So after all that information, what's my final verdict on the PSA Sabre? I think if you're looking to buy your first rifle or you're looking to upgrade your current rifle, I think the PSA Sabre is a good choice. I see extreme value in the accuracy and the reliability I've experienced with the PSA Sabre after 2,000 rounds. I think the Radian charging handle and safety selector offer extreme value along with the quality Magpul furniture. The bolt is 2,000 rounds strong with no maintenance. All I did was lube it around round 1350. That's pretty good. I see value there. You would have to get over the fact that your gas block came with rust on it. Like I said, PSA does offer a lifetime warranty on their products, but if you're going to advertise something as your premium line of products, I think the QC should be a little bit better and you shouldn't have to use that warranty almost immediately whenever you receive your rifle. I think if you're looking for like a duty rifle, I would maybe encourage you to look elsewhere, but for the average citizen who's going to shoot maybe a couple times a year, this rifle has extreme value for you, in my personal opinion. Other than that, thank you all for sticking around until the end. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, if you agree or disagree with anything I said, let me know in the comments. If you think I left anything out, also let me know in the comments. Let me know what other guns you want to see me talk about or do a review on. Until then, I'll be back with more videos.